few times, and there's a mutual feeling between them. So here is Mr. KRVM himself, formerly of KFMY. I remember it from those days, about 40 years ago.
Formerly of
Mr. Ken Martin.
Isn't this a great time?
Yeah.
Everybody having fun tonight? You know, it feels like Bear is here, but, you know, talking about all these great stories. And, you know, so many of you have already gotten up here and said all the things I wanted to say. You know, how much we admired Bear, how much of an inspiration he was. And I was there in the early days of KFNY. I got there before Iris did, before Gary T did, and Gary brought Bear there. And I tell you, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't be the actual person. I wouldn't be the radio person I am today without the, we use this word a lot. Everybody talks about how mentoring Barry was. And I just, you know, can't reiterate those kind of things that everybody has said. But, you know, it means so much to see so many of you that I haven't seen in 20, 30, 40 years or more. And I'm just so glad everybody came out and respects Barry the way I did and the way we all did. Just amazing. Yeah, my wife, Diane, she would say, gee, what are you gonna say if you get up there? What are you gonna say if you meet some of his family and things like that? We're not supposed to talk about some of that stuff. Everybody already did.
So let her rip.
Start telling some of the stories about some of the things that happened at KFNY back in those days. We'd be here all day long. You know, one of the most fun things I remember about KFNY, if you don't know Eugene, is up on we call the ridge top. It's up on a steep hill. And back in those days, it was just a one little paved road with big ditches on the side. And in the winter, if it snowed or got icy, you could not drive that last half mile up the hill. And besides working, I think I was working the midday show at 10 to 2 during the weekdays. I also worked Saturday morning, 6 a.m. till 10 or noon. And so Barry was working evenings, 7 to midnight or 7 to 1 or 2. So if we had that kind of inclement weather where we knew that there was no way I was going to get up at, 4 o'clock in the morning and try to get up that hill at 6, we would pack our sleeping bags and cans of soup and whatever else. The emphasis on the whatever else. And we would park at the bottom of the hill and trudge up that hill. And I remember several times we'd get a third of the way up that hill. I mean, we're talking like 500 yards up the hill. It's like, oh crap! You drop everything and it slides right down the icy hill back to the bottom. And we start again. We finally all get up there. And the funny thing about old Dookie on, because the station signed off like at 2 a.m. and then signed back on at 6 a.m. because it wasn't a 24-hour day station back then. And old Duke, he would say things like, I know what you guys are doing up there. I know what you guys are doing. Of course, he wouldn't stop us, but he said, and I don't care if you do all that because there's nothing I can do about it. But just turn the transmitter off. Don't keep it on all night. Of course, we did. And we said, why? Well, I don't care about paying the electricity. I just don't want the audience to come to expect us to be on 24 hours a day. But boy, I tell you, we had some good times. And the funny thing about that was, we would sit there and do the all-night thing together, 4 or 5 of us, like, here, you play 20 minutes worth of music, you play a half hour's worth. Because we thought, wow, it's the middle of the night. We can play anything we want. But that's what we did all the time anyway. Because back in those days, it was radio the way radio still should be. DJs playing what they wanted to play and saying what they wanted to say. You know, back when radio was an art form, not a corporate business. And I'm so happy through a set of circumstances, so gosh, 7, 8 years ago, that I was kicked out the door of corporate radio. It kind of hurt at the time, but it was the best thing that happened to me because the last 2 or 3 years in corporate radio, I said every single day, many times, I didn't get into radio to be an accountant. Being middleman. It's like radio is an art form, it's music, it's fun. And that was the one thing that Bear really brought to all of us, especially at KFNY in our formative years. We would sit there at home, my wife and I, that stage in the mid-70s, or put the TV away, put it in the closet. We don't need to watch TV. Let's sit there and catonically stare at that red stereo beacon across the living room with the lights out. And we'd sit there, and Barry was on like 7 to midnight every night. We'd say, we'll sit here and listen. We'll go to bed and we'll hear a song we don't like. And we were there all the way through every night. And like Johnny said too, you know, just listening to Barry, you learn so much because you wanted to become a better DJ, a better communicator. And nobody did it better than Barry. You just learned so much if you were really into radio and wanted to perfect your craft simply by listening to it. And you know, I hear his voice in my head all the time. You know, at KFNY now, or at KFNY during those days, we were all kind of students of radio. And now where I am now at KRVM, where I started my radio career in high school, you know, working with these students, I think of the many lessons that Bear taught me. Even though he wasn't really trying to teach us things, he just simply absorbed it. And that's the one thing I'll always remember about Bear, and just his influence on me, and how great he made radio, and how much fun he made those years at KFNY for all of us. Thanks for coming. This
Amen.
is just absolutely wonderful.
I just want to say one thing or two, and I mean one or two. When our oldest son was a little guy, he and Adam went to school together, so we met Barry and Dorothy. And Barry and Dorothy turned out to be, well, you know, really good friends of ours. And a lot of times my dear wife will tell me, Glenn, you got to get out more. You only have like 3 friends. And now I have 2. And Barry was a great, great person. I know Barry and Dorothy were like this. And I'm just so happy that they have a great son and a beautiful grandson. And I miss you, man. And maybe I'll see you later.
Hi everyone. I'm so impressed all you guys talking about scripts, like whatever. My name is Christina, and Barry was the reason that I moved to Eugene, and he was the reason that I stayed. He was the program director at K-Rocks, and in 1985 he hired me midnight to 6 on the weekends, and that place was absolutely nuts, but he was a fantastic zookeeper. I really was incredibly lonely when I first moved here, and I'm so grateful that Dorothy and Barry befriended me when I moved here. While I was working at K-Rocks, waiting for one of the full-time DJs to get fired or OD, so I could get a full-time shift, Barry connected me with his friend Kathy, who was looking for a writer at an ad agency, and I got the job. And so that got my foot in the door in advertising, which has sustained me while I wait for the next great radio station. And I can thank Bear for that. I super loved hanging out at Bear and Dorothy's, and they often had me over to spend the weekend so we could stay up late, play lots of music, party, and I didn't have to risk driving home. One of those times I had donated blood earlier in the day for the first time ever, and then went over there for dinner, and Barry made me a Tom Collins, which was just delicious. And about halfway through it, I started getting dizzy, and so I went to the bathroom in case I got ill. And Adam, who was probably only 7 years old at the time, heard me in the bathroom and ran into the living room to tell Barry, Christina sounds like a monster. Apparently I'm not Scarlett O'Hara when I faint. I was on the floor making guttural noises. And when I woke up, Barry and Adam were looking down at me, and I will never forget the look on Barry's face, you know. You might think it would be worried concern, but no. It was like absolute delight. He was like, whoa, that was so cool. You sounded just like a monster. When the cave came to town, Barry was already on the air, was in, of course, and he introduced me to the owners in Nottingham as the early morning news announcer. And despite my sucking at this, we really enjoyed working together. He knew I was scared, and he knew I was sucking, but he anchored me with his warmth and encouragement. And luckily for me, they moved me to afternoons. They brought Rooster in on the mornings, and with Barry at middays, and Steve Tannenbaum in the evenings. On the 11th floor of the Hilton Hotel, it was the best times I spent in Eugene, and again, thanks to Barry. One of my all-time favorite Thanksgivings was when Barry and Dorothy had all the cave orphans over to their house. And some years later, after the cave ended and Rooster was dying from Lou Gehrig's disease, it was Barry and Dorothy who had hosted a cave reunion at their home. And this not only reunited all of us, but it also healed and repaired a lot of wounds and squabbles and hard feelings that some of us had had in the aftermath of the cave's demise. Because, of course, little squabbles mean nothing in the larger scheme of things. Since I moved to Portland, the little man Adam has grown into an extraordinary musician, and he's a teacher at the Portland School of Rock. And Barry couldn't have been prouder. And it was just like, I was in tears when we came and watched you working with the class. Looking back, nobody had a more significant impact on my adult life than Barry, and I will miss you, my dear friend. You cared more about the music than the sound of your voice in the microphone. Thank you for your friendship and bringing me into your wonderful family. Dorothy, you used to make a joke that maybe people thought your name was +1 because that was always the name after Gary. Barry's on the guest list. And you weren't +1, you were the partner. You were the amazing woman who enabled him to achieve and chase after his entrepreneurial endeavors and to go after this crazy, broken world of radio. Love you, Dorothy. And my heart is with you.